Chanticleer and the Fox, adapted from Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. Once upon a time there lived a poor widow woman. She lived in a small cottage which sat in a little grove. She led a simple life by God's grace, patiently looking after herself and her 2 young daughters. In her possession she had only 3 cows, 3 sows, and a fluffy little white sheep called Molly. Although her lodgings were sooty and sparse, there was no shortage of white milk and brown bread. Yet the family never grew sick from overeating. Since she was kind of a dairy woman, they were sometimes nourished by broiled bacon or an egg or 2. Thus the table was frequently laid in white and black, but never red, for she did not partake of wine. A portion of her yard was fenced all around, and within it she had a rooster named Chanticleer. For his crowing, none equaled him in all the land. In fact, his crowing was more trustworthy than the best-made clock, and his voice merrier than any church organ. The comb on his head was redder than the finest coral, and it was turreted like a castle wall. His bill was black and shone like jet, and his legs and toes were of the deepest azure. This exceedingly fine rooster had several hens, each colored like him, and in his service to do his bidding. The prettiest of all was fair Demoiselle Partlet. She was polite, debonair, discreet, and companionable. So much so that she held the heart of Chanticleer tightly locked, and it was joy to all to hear them sing in sweet harmony at the sun's rising, for in those days, so I am told, beasts and birds could talk and sing. So it was one day at dawn. Chanticleer sat on his perch surrounded by all the hens. He began to groan in his throat, frightened. His faithful Partlet said,
"My dear, what ails you so that you groan in this manner?"
He answered, saying, "Madame, I just now dreamed that I was in great danger. In my dream I was roaming within our yard, and I saw a dreadful beast, like a hound. He tried to grab me by my body and desired to kill me. His hair was orange, and both ears and tail were dipped with black. His snout was small, and his eyes glowed. I nearly died just from the sight of him. That doubtless caused my groaning."
"Shame on you, husband. You have a man's beard and a man's heart, but by my faith I cannot be married to a coward. Be merry, husband. Dreams are but vanity. Do not fear a dream."
"Thank you, Madame Partlet. I do say you have given good advice, and when I see the beauty of your face, my fear melts away." With these words he flew from his perch, for it was day, and it was time to call the hens to the grain which was scattered about the yard. No longer in fear, he began to strut, as regal as a prince, barely setting his foot to the earth. Walking in all his pride, Chanticleer, with his wives beside him, cast his eyes up to the sun. He crowed with a voice full of mirth and merriment. "Listen to the birds singing. Smell the fresh flowers. My heart is so full of joy." Then he was overtaken by a sorrowful event. A fox, sly and wicked, who had lived in the grove for going on 3 years, had burst through the hedges on the previous night, and there he lay silently in a bed of herbs, where Chanticleer and his wives were fond of going. Partlet and her sisters lay bathing in the sand, and the stately Chanticleer sang more and more joyfully. However, as he cast his eye on a butterfly among the herbs, he noticed the fox lying low. He had no more desire to crow, and instead cried, "Cock, cock!" like a man frightened in the depths of his heart. Chanticleer would have ran at once, but the fox said,
"My dear sir, where are you going? Are you afraid of me? But I am your father's friend. I only came here to listen to you sing. For your voices as the angels in heaven. God bless their souls. Your father and your mother paid me the great honor of visiting my house. Except for you, I've never heard a sweeter voice than your father's. He would close his eyes, stand on his tiptoes, and stretch his long, slender neck in order to make his voice stronger. Now sing, son, and let's see if you can sing as well as your dear father."
Chanticleer beat his wings. He stood up straight and stretched his neck, closed his eyes, and crowed as loud as he could. At once the fox sprang for Chanticleer, grabbed him by the throat, and ran for the woods. Such a cry had never been heard as that of the hens when they saw Chanticleer captured by the fox. The poor widow and her daughters heard the hens crying and ran at once to see what was the matter.
Look, a fox!
They screamed and ran toward the grove after him. As the fox reached the edge of the grove, Chanticleer spoke up in spite of his fear and said, "Sir, if I were you, I would say to the peasants, 'Turn back now, for I will eat him in spite of you, and not be long about it.'"
"In faith,"
answered the fox,
"it shall be so."
As soon as he spoke these words, Chanticleer broke away from his mouth and flew high into a tree at once. When the fox saw the rooster was gone, he said,
"Oh, Chanticleer, alas, I have done you a bad deed. I scared you when I grabbed you from the yard, but I did so without evil intent. Come down and I will tell you what I mean."
"Nay," said Chanticleer, "never again shall you trick me to sing with my eyes closed, for he who closes his eyes when he should watch will never be prospered by God."
"Nay,"
said the fox.
"God brings misfortune to him who is careless and lacking in self-control, that he speaks and he should hold his peace."
Now see,
said the widow as the fox slunk back into the woods,
that is what happens when you trust in flattery.
and she gratefully marched back to her little cottage in the little grove. Produced and directed by Living Bricks Literature.